How does a soldier's homecoming train journey never end? During one of the darkest periods in United States history, when a war hero's internal struggle on the train took him even further away from the family waiting for him, what happened? The truth hidden in this story would change a family's life forever. If you have a similar family story, please share your experiences with us.
It was June 1945, exactly 1 year after the Normandy landings. Thousands of wounded soldiers lying in hospitals along the east coast of the United States were finally preparing to return home. I was one of those wounded soldiers. My name is James Michael Thompson. I was 25 years old and from a small town in Pennsylvania called Millfield. And like thousands of young Americans, I had gone to Europe to protect our homeland. Now I am sitting on that train, and every passing minute brings me closer to my home. But strangely, the closer I get to home, the more my uneasiness increases. The shrapnel pieces I took in my left leg will never come out, according to what the doctor said. I limp when I walk now. I cannot move 3 fingers on my right hand. But worst of all, the war being fought in my mind has not ended yet. I look at the other wounded soldiers sitting next to me on the train. Some are sleeping, some are watching outside through the window. We all have the same expression in our eyes. We have returned home, but have we really returned home? Am I James Thompson, or just the pieces that war left behind from me? I cannot stop myself from thinking about Sarah inside. Sarah Elizabeth Wilson Thompson. She was 19 when I met her. Her hair was golden blonde, her eyes ocean blue. She was 5 feet 5 inches tall, elegant, but strong woman. She worked at the only grocery store in Millfield, and had that sweet smile on her face that never faded when talking to customers. When I first saw her, I realized that the pounding in my heart was not just from running, but from her presence. We had married 3 months before I went to war. Our wedding was a small ceremony, but the whole town was there. Sarah's wedding dress was her mother's wedding dress, decorated with old lace, simple but very elegant. When I looked at her that day, I knew for certain that I had to return from war, safe and sound for her. But now I am sitting on this train, and I do not know how I will look at Sarah. In her letters, she wrote to me that everything would be like before, that she was waiting for me impatiently. In her last letter, she mentioned that she had arranged a job for me at the grocery store in town. When you come home, everything will be like before, James. You are my hero, and I love you so much, that she had written. My hero. I do not feel like a hero at all. How will I tell Sarah what I saw on the beaches of Normandy? How will I describe the fear in that young German soldier's eyes? When that boy, who could not even be 18 years old, fell to the ground with my bullet, I had thought that his mother was also waiting for her son like Sarah. The train is passing small towns. It stops at every station, and some soldiers get off. I hear the joyful screams of families welcoming them. Mothers shed tears of joy. Children hug their fathers' necks. I also watch these scenes from the window, but something breaks inside me. I know I will be welcomed like this too, but I do not feel ready. My friend sitting next to me, Michael Rodriguez from Texas, turns to me. Michael was in the same unit as me. He had lost his left arm, but seemed to be in much better condition mentally than me. He smiled at me and asked in a low voice what was going through my mind. I also told him about Sarah and life at home. Michael started talking about his own wife, Maria Rodriguez, a very beautiful woman of Mexican origin like himself. According to him, the war had made them even stronger. War taught us the value of life, James, he told me. We will not waste time on unimportant things anymore. But I was not as optimistic as Michael. I cannot sleep at night. I am still on those beaches in my dreams. I hear cannon sounds. I know I will startle and wake up even when Sarah sleeps next to me. How will I explain this to her? When the train entered Pennsylvania borders, my heart started beating even faster. Now I was seeing familiar landscapes. Those green hills, Small farmhouses, bridges we occasionally crossed. They all seemed familiar from my childhood, but I was looking at them as if from a completely different world. I took out Sarah's last photograph from my pocket. A black and white portrait taken at the town photographer. She had tied her hair back, looking at the lens with that beautiful smile. She had written this on the back of the photograph in her own handwriting. "I will love you forever, my hero, Sarah." Looking at this photograph, I feel a deep weight inside me. Sarah still remembers me as James before I went to war. But I am no longer that man. War took many things from me. Not just physical wounds, but also took a part of my soul. As Millfield station approached, other passengers on the train also began to notice the situation. The conductor announced that wounded soldiers were getting off. Michael patted me on the shoulder saying, "Come on, buddy, our family is waiting for us." But I could not get up from my seat. I saw Sarah on the station platform. She was wearing that beautiful blue dress. She had done her hair, just like on our wedding day. She was holding a small American flag in her hand. Her mother, Martha, and father, William, were standing next to her. All three were trying to see me, scanning the train windows. But I moved away from that window. I pulled back in my seat. My breathing is getting short. My hands are shaking. When Michael asked me what was wrong, I could only say, "I am not ready yet." The train stopped at the station for 5 minutes. Sarah and my family continued to look for me. I could hear Sarah's voice, "James, James, where are you?" But I could not get out. I could not get out because I did not know how I would explain it to them. When I saw that love and pride in Sarah's eyes, I did not know how I would feel about myself. The train started moving again. Michael looked at me in amazement. "James, what are you doing? Your family is waiting for you," he said. But I just said, "I will get off at the next station." I did not really know where I was going. Hearing Sarah's voice, when I looked out the window, I saw her trying to follow the train by running. Her blue dress was fluttering in the wind. The flag in her hand was trembling. "James, please get off. I love you," she was shouting. Tears were flowing down her cheeks. I will never forget that moment. Sarah's desperate look, my mother's and father's bewildered faces. On that train, leaving them behind, I was left alone not only with my physical wounds, but also with the war I carried in my soul. As the train moved away from Millfield, I felt a great emptiness inside me. I loved Sarah, my family was waiting for me, but I was not ready. I was not yet that James Thompson. Maybe I would never be that man. With the train's movement, I looked back one last time from the window. Sarah was no longer running. She was standing on the platform, pressing the flag in her hand to her chest, tears continuing to flow. My mother Martha had put her arm around Sarah's shoulder. They were crying together. My father William had taken off his hat and bowed his head. That strong man looked helpless for the first time in his life. Michael was sitting next to me, trying to understand me. "James, buddy, this is not right. That woman loves you. Your family is waiting for you. Why are you doing this?" he asked. I did not have the strength to answer him. I just leaned my head against the window and started crying silently. As the train passed through the Pennsylvania countryside, I continued to see familiar landscapes from my childhood. The families living in those small farmhouses must have been preparing for dinner. Smoke rising from chimneys, lights leaking from windows, ... Everything looked so peaceful, but I felt that I could not be part of that peace. I continued to hear Sarah's voice in my mind, that sweet voice, that proud tone when she called me my hero, but I was not a hero. Everything I did in the war was to survive. When I shot that young German soldier, I thought that he also had a family, maybe a wife like myself. At that moment I had to kill him, because either he would kill me or I would kill him. But this did not make me a hero. On the beaches of Normandy, on that day when the sands turned blood red, I had watched my friend Bobby Martinez die in my arms. Bobby was from Los Angeles, California. He was 22 years old and a newly married man. As he was breathing his last, He was murmuring his wife Elena's name. I had to watch the light in his eyes go out. I did not know how I would convey Bobby's last words to Elena. After the war, I had written reports about Bobby's death. In official documents, it said died as a martyr while fighting bravely under enemy fire. But the truth was that Bobby was afraid in his last moments, missed his home, and did not want to die. How would I tell these truths to their families? Now I am sitting on this train, and I do not know how I will look at Sarah. She sees me as a hero, but I am just a survivor. At night, I hear Bobby's voice. In my dreams, I am still on those beaches. Cannon sounds seem so real that when I wake up, I look for a battlefield around me. Dr. Harrison, our psychiatrist at the hospital, had told me that this condition was temporary. Time heals, James. You just need to be patient, he had said. But I could not be patient. Sarah could not be patient. My family could not be patient. They were expecting the James they knew when they sent me, but that James no longer existed. I took out another photograph of Sarah from my pocket. This was our honeymoon photograph. It had been taken in front of Niagara Falls. Sarah was wearing a white blouse and blue skirt that day. She was smiling and hugging me, resting her head on my shoulder. Looking at that photograph, I was trying to remember my happiness that day, but there was only an empty feeling inside me. Michael turned to me again. James, I am also afraid, he said. I also do not know how I will look at Maria, but running away is not the solution. We must solve this problem together with them. Michael was perhaps right, but I was not yet that strong. As the train approached the next station, I had made my decision. I would get off in Philadelphia and stay there for a while. Maybe in the big city, I would pull myself together, become ready to return to Sarah and my family. Maybe I would find a job, rebuild my life. But right now, I was not ready to go home. The next station was Philadelphia. I got off there and lost myself in the anonymity of the big city. The first night, I stayed at a small boarding house in the city center. The room was dirty and cold, but at least I was alone. I wrote a letter to Sarah, but never sent it. In that letter I had tried to tell her everything. The war, my fears, why I could not come home. In the last lines of the letter I had written, Sarah, you still love that James, but he is no longer here. In his place, there is someone with trauma, who cries at night, who lives in the shadow of war. This man is not worthy of you. You deserve better. Writing these words had broken my heart, but it was true. Those first weeks in Philadelphia were very difficult. During the day, I wandered around the city. At night, I stayed alone in the boarding house. Every night in my dreams, I lived that moment at Millfield Station. I heard Sarah's voice, but I could not reach her.
James Thompson's story reveals the deep marks that were left on soldiers' souls. Thousands of American soldiers had to struggle alone with their mental wounds while healing their physical wounds. This story is the story of the silent war experienced not just by one soldier, but by an entire generation. The real victory of war may perhaps be hidden in that internal struggle that begins after returning home. James's not getting off that train was perhaps not a lack of courage, but an instinct to protect his loved ones.